follow-up. Mr. Secretary Clinton.
This is to me? Okay, so we're following up about the question about how confident we are that the election is not swayed by fraud. This is a good point. Okay, coming back to the point that Mr. Trump had just made about the tone of articles. Mr. Trump argued that the reason why this election is rigged is because the tone of the articles in the news that report on each of us are more biased against him. And my argument would be all that the news media are doing are reporting his words. They put him on the air and say, Donald Trump just said this. And I'm actually not going to repeat any of it because it's not appropriate to do in a school. But all the news media does is report his words. And somehow that's biased because the media covers him and reports on what he says. That's not biased. That's reporting the facts.
Okay, I mean, you're right. If tone didn't really necessarily matter because it's just me saying these things, I'm being blunt. I'm not a politician. I'm sorry that I'm a truthful individual that says what I really want to say. But getting back to this idea of bias again, some of the WikiLeaks emails that have been released, if you've been aware of those in the news, they're all over the place. Clinton has many, many emails that have very shady things going on that have been deleted or whatever. But one of them that came out was about how one of her people needed to make sure that at my rallies there was lots of violent people. They were actually paying for people to show up to my rallies to be violent. Okay, so that I looked bad as a negative individual running for the president. So obviously tone does matter, and I did not create that tone. Secretary, you created it for me.
But for the record, you're the one that has said you can knock out anyone who's protesting. Punch him in the face, I'll pay your legal bills.
Guilty.
That's Donald Trump. That's
hey,
Donald Trump.
I regret that. It was miscommunication.
Did any of you want to further respond?
I'm
or
good. I'm good.
Recently, Russia has emerged as an aggressive player on the world stage. Both of you had some words and even experience related to Russia. How would you handle Russia, or is Russia not an issue?
Russia is a big issue, okay? The previous administration is just a disaster, and obviously Secretary Clinton worked with the previous administration to make this disaster, particularly in Syria. If you're not aware of what Russia and Syria and us all have to do with each other, Syria is a place where we have a leader called Assad, okay? He was a not so nice guy, we can all be honest about that, but he at least kept the crazies in control. Okay, and then Secretary Clinton got this grand idea with Mr. Obama that they wanted Assad out, and so they supported rebels to get him out, and that started basically a little bit of a war. And then Russia said, "Oh no, you don't touch Syria. That is our place. We have a port with them. We actually are going to make sure that Assad keeps power." When you have two world powers fighting over an area, not directly with each other, but indirectly, that is a proxy war. Okay, that is leading to a new war between America and Russia. And last I checked in history, that is not a good thing. And last I checked, that was not a Democrat thing. Like, when did the Democrats become these war hawks that wanted war with Russia? Right? We have been allies with Russia since the Cold War, and under the Obama administration and Secretary Clinton's secretary time, it has completely depleted and fallen apart. Congratulations. Thank you. Like, in the textbooks in 20, 30 years, if you become president, we might just have World War III, because you are the one that said in the last debate or two debates ago that the way you would make Russia cooperate in this area is to have a no-fly zone. Well, the only way to have a no-fly zone is for us to shoot planes that show up in that zone down. So we're going to shoot Russian planes down, and Vladimir Putin's just going to be like, oh, man, I lost a plane today. What do I do about that? No, Vladimir Putin is going to kick your butt. That's why y'all need me to be president of the United States of America. Thank you.
So Mr. Trump brings up some good points, and I may reiterate a point or two that he makes, but let me say, many of you in this room may be too young to remember, but it was only a handful of years ago that the Cold War was the biggest threat to our existence in this country. The closest that we've ever come to complete annihilation, meaning we're all dead, folks, was not the threat of Iraq or Afghanistan, but the threat and near occurrence of nuclear war with Russia. Now, while we are no longer engaged in the Cold War today, we do live in a world where Vladimir Putin, the Russian leader, is currently, as we speak, committing war crimes in Syria. He's tortured and even killed his political opponents in Russia. He's executed a hack of US government computers after being encouraged by Donald Trump to do so. We do have to take a strong stance against powers who work evil in this world, including Vladimir Putin. We have to respond with strength when he invades the Crimean Peninsula in Ukraine. Donald Trump has said that Vladimir Putin is a, quote, good leader. He said about other, this is one of many quotes about dictators he made in recent days and weeks. He said about Saddam Hussein, he said, quote, he did well. He killed terrorists. He did that so good, they didn't even read them rights. They didn't talk. They were terrorists.
Good job.
Over.
Go Saddam, go.
And the brutal dictator of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, he said, quote, it's pretty amazing when you think of it. Even though it's a culture and a cultural thing, he goes in, he takes over, and he's the boss. It's incredible. About brutal dictator in Libya, Muammar Gaddafi, he said, we would be so much better off if Gaddafi were in charge right now. He's retweeted quotes by Benito Mussolini. I guess if we want to move in the direction of being a country led by a dictator, cut from the cloth of Russia's Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump is the leader that we should choose.
I'm just going to say this once. This woman is a nasty woman, okay? Now, I say this because she is trying to tell you that when you have a country, a world power that is out of order, like being the naughty kid, that your job is to go in and make sure they're being good. I would completely agree. Then what the hell are we doing with ISIS? Because ISIS is out there doing all sorts of crazy things, right? They're chopping off people's heads. They've been doing this for 2 years, right? They're burning people alive. They are literally burying thousands of people alive, and you guys are doing nothing about it, but you want to start a war with Russia. World War III, go for it.
I'm not arguing that we should start a war with Russia. I'm arguing that we should take a strong stance to Russia. And let me bring this back for a moment to Russia, the original question. That I don't know if you know this in the news recently, that in 2014, Russia invaded the Crimean Peninsula in Ukraine. Right? This is an event that happened just a few years ago. Donald Trump was being interviewed after this event took place, and he didn't even understand that that was something that had happened. His quote was, Putin is not going to go into Ukraine, okay? Just so you understand. He's not going to go into Ukraine, all right? You can mark it down. You can take it anywhere you want to. No one had told him it had happened a couple weeks before.
He barely went into it. There's a difference between going into a country and then just kind of playing on the outskirts of it.
Okay.
Anyway.
Thank you. Next question. Currently, student loan debt is known to be economically crippling to a lot of college graduates, and many qualified individuals find themselves avoiding college because they can't afford it. Do you have any plan to make higher education cheaper or more accessible? We'll start with you, Mr. Trump.
Okay, thank you for your question. Right now we have 43 million Americans that owe $1.3 trillion in loans, okay? Obviously, you guys are going to be going to college for the most part, many of you. I understand that you have this question, who will pay for it? If you are already relatively lower middle class, poor middle class, right, you already have access to free monies to help you pay for college. That is through the FAFSA program. Everyone's well aware of it, okay? My idea is not necessarily, like my opponent, to give free college for all. Right? Because under her plan, 80% of American families will get free college. I mean, I'd be a fan, like, I can't wait to hear how you're going to pay for that. Like, it's going to be a great 2 minutes. But let's be real. It will not be payable, okay? The only way to pay for that is to increase everyone's taxes, all right? Even down to the middle class. She pretends that it will only be people that are making $250,000 or more a year that will be paying higher taxes to pay for this. But that is not true. Look at the numbers. Go to my website, right? My idea is to make sure that your option to attend a 2 to 4 year college or a vocational school is more accessible to you. I would also like to see the universities have more skin in the game. I want to provide government incentives that say if you make your college tuition cheaper at your college, then we will give you more federal dollars and more federal funding, okay? But we want to see the colleges make that choice, because the number one reason when you go to college, you're gonna end up with a lot of debt, on average around 30 grand, is because many of you go to college and one, you're not really prepared to graduate, so you just kind of go there for a couple years and waste money that you now have to pay back. And two, many of you go there and have a lot of fun. And you don't go there for 4 years for a 4-year degree, you go there for 6 years. And the colleges encourage that because some of them, they know that you should not even be there. They need to have more skin in the game. If you shouldn't be at college or you need more help to be successful and get done in your 4 years so you have less debt, they should be forced to help do that. Not forced, helped by having tax incentives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trump.
So listen, this is an issue that I'm in the right place for. This is an issue that most of you in this room should really be able to get behind me. I think most of the students in this room would agree that the costs associated with going to college are starting to get out of control. It should not be the case that only the wealthy and elite in this country have the means to better themselves with a college education.
Wow, really?
Just like all people in this country have the right to a high school education, all people should have the right to attend college if they choose. And so my plan for higher education includes a number of points. One point being that I believe that every student should have the option to graduate from a public college or university in their state without taking on any student debt. By 2021, families with incomes up to $125,000 will pay no tuition at in-state 4-year public colleges and universities. And from the beginning, every student from a family making $85,000 a year or less will be able to go to an in-state public 4-year college or university without paying tuition. Second, all community colleges will offer free tuition. Anyone who chooses to attend a school like FSCJ will be able to do so free of charge. And finally, my third point is I will create a $25 billion fund to support historically black colleges and universities, Hispanic-serving institutions, and other minority-serving institutions in building new ladders of opportunity for students. That's my time on that one. Thank you.
Wow.
All right. Just gotta remind the audience to hold their applause till the end. Mr. Trump.
All I can say is wow. I think I heard the word free maybe like 10 times. Okay. Again, there was nothing from my opponent on how she would like to pay for her fantasy world. Okay, to give free college to someone, you must have the money come from somewhere. Will that be just the upper class? That is impossible. There's not enough money. You would have to tax them so much that they would have no incentive to work and invest in their business. Nobody's going to do that, not even a Democrat, okay? So there's nothing you can do about giving free college to everyone. Can we make it a little bit cheaper and supply more free money to the lower, poorer people in FAFSA? Yes, but this idea that 80% of you are going to college for free is fantasy.
So I love this response that it's like, oh my gosh, how can we possibly provide free education to people? Look at where you're sitting right now. This is free education that is paid for in this world. That, oh my gosh, how could we possibly provide education?
And how
free?
high are
It's
taxes
happening.
already?
It's
Taxes are
happening
already
right
too
now.
high.
It's happening. And let me say, when we talk about college, this is not. We would not be the first country to do this. There are many advanced nations in Europe that are doing this very thing right now. That's how you build an educated workforce. That's how you build a population that is ready to serve the jobs of the 21st century.
Okay, this is where I get to take one. Okay, so you guys on average are probably costing the school or the public school system about 15, 20 grand a year, okay? To go to college, even a community college, it would be 15 to 20 grand a semester, right? Even for like the community ones. Even let's say it's 10. That's 10 times 2 is 20 grand a year. That is going to double your parents' taxes, double your taxes when you get a job from the college degree that you have. Are you really prepared to do that, or would you rather help the poorer people already who are getting the access to the free money, have the free college, and then you take the burden upon yourself to invest in your own education?
So we may disagree on the numbers. We're not talking about providing for full room and board for every student. We're talking about commuting students going to a 4-year institution. So I would say we maybe can agree to disagree in this argument about those numbers. My only point is that this isn't unprecedented. We would not be the first country in the world to do that. There are many advanced nations, particularly in Europe, doing the exact same thing.
And they
that
have
we are
very high
proposing.
taxes.
Next question. Our nation is currently described as divided, and many political figures and other thinkers are saying that our country is divided on issues like race equality and income equality, and this election isn't helping the situation. What is your plan for reunifying America, Secretary Clinton?
Me first. Okay. So healing the wounds. I feel like we are at a very divided point in our country right now, and this is a huge imperative we have right now, is to heal the wounds after this election. This has been a bloody, dirty, hard election. And I would say that the starting place for healing the wounds of this nation right now would be to start with the words and the language that we use in our conversation, that we use in our public discourse. A lot of people find Donald Trump entertaining because he tells it like it is. And I would agree, Donald Trump is entertaining, but this is not a reality TV show. Words matter. Language matters. If the chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank doesn't choose his words precisely, stock markets can start to tailspin. A misinterpreted word in international politics can start us down the road to war. And trying to heal a divided country will be virtually impossible if we use language like Donald Trump. If our English teachers in school have taught us anything, I hope they have taught us the importance of words. You can't heal a nation by referring to women as pigs and fat slobs, by making fun of handicapped people, or by insulting other races and other religions. You can't heal a nation by encouraging a crowd to beat up protesters. You can't heal a nation by mocking a disabled person in front of a crowd and a television audience. And you can't heal a nation by saying that in the good old days, dissenting voices would be carried out on stretchers. All of these things Donald Trump has said and done. And you may criticize me for missteps that I've made in the past, but everything that I've done in my entire career has been for the good of this country and for the good of all the people who call it their home.
Would you like to follow up with that, Mr. Trump?
Okay, so he mentioned many phrases that I have said. I've acknowledged in the past that some of those were poorly worded choices, but he has also shown you what is wrong with the system. What's wrong with the system is people like her. They are these career politicians who do what they do for their entire life. They've never actually gotten a real job. They've never actually had to go out and do real work, an 8 to 5 like the rest of us, okay? And so, yeah, he's been properly trained by the system on how to say the right things but not necessarily mean it, right? So, sorry, threw me off. But I am going to be the person who says the right things. Yes, do I sometimes say things that might not be that great? That does happen. I am Trump. I say what's on my mind, right? But you know what I say is what I mean, and that is going to be relatively truthful on my opinion, okay? Now, going back to what the question is actually really about, it's about our divided nation. The job of a president is to bring a nation together. Right? After this election, we are going to need to work together to bring this nation and repair what's going on. We all know what's happening in Ferguson. We all know what's happening in Missouri and all these other places. The job of Obama, Mr. Obama, should be that he comes in and he tries to help repair that situation. He should be a better cheerleader in helping that situation go more smoothly. And he has chosen not to be. When I am president, I will be better at doing that, going to the inner cities, making sure that they're aware that I am trying to improve their situations. If we make the inner cities a nicer place to live with more jobs, people are happier when they have jobs. Okay, my plan is to bring economic zones into the inner cities and say to businesses, if you bring your business to this area, you will have tax incentives. That will create jobs in that area. It will make a nicer place to live, and that will make our inner cities a happier place, and it will help make our nation come together.
So let me just respond to a couple points that Mr. Trump made about my past, my history as you know, working in government. When I served as a senator, I served as a senator under a Republican president. I feel like my experience has shown that I have the ability to work across the aisle. I have the ability to work with people that I disagree with politically, and I would ask you all out here to look very hard at Donald Trump and say, do you think this is a person? You all have heard his words. You've heard the language that he has used. Do you think this is someone that would ever be capable of working with people he disagrees with? And I think you find the answer is clearly no.
We have seen what it looks like to not work with the people you disagree with. That is you and Mr. Obama, the president. They are excellent examples of how it is my way or the highway. Let's be honest, people. It's a Clinton and it's a Mr. Obama. That's how they work. I am a Trump. In my family, I have had businesses, successes throughout my entire life and my father's life. We have been about sitting at the table, making a deal, making it work for all sides, and walking away into the future and into a better life. That is what I am about, and that is why you should elect me to be your president.
All right, thank you. And for our last question of the evening, what would you do to address the situation of our nation's immigration policy, both domestically and through other humanitarian crises abroad? We'll start with you, Mr. Trump.
Okay, right now we have an immigration issue. It's getting ugly. It's not what we want it to be. We have two parts where it's having a problem. We have people flooding over the boundary between Mexico and America. And it's not just people who live in Mexico. It's not just people who live in South America. We actually have recent reports of people in Haiti and African countries that are having a lot of issues that are flying there so that they can walk across their border and claim refugee status or whatever they want to do to get in. That is not how the process works. We have a system for legal immigration. If you want to be a legal immigrant to this great country, I am all about it. My family immigrated here from Europe, and I support you with that. Is the legal immigration system slow? It is. As president, I would help with reforms to make sure that the immigration process for the legal way increases. We also have a second immigration issue. That is the chaos caused by Secretary Clinton and her boss, President Obama, in Syria. We have millions of refugees who are trying to get away, and understandably so. It is an awful, awful situation there. And they want to come to great countries such as ourselves to have a better life. Okay. Unfortunately, right now is not a good time to do so, because if we just bring in thousands and thousands of people from these areas, we have no idea who is on our side and holds our values and who is not on our side and doesn't hold our values. Do we not have a good system for vetting them and making sure that they are people who want to be Americans? Okay, or are they people who work for ISIS or Al-Qaeda, which still exists? Are they trying to get over here so they can do lone wolf attacks? Because many of these lone wolf attacks that have happened, and we get one every about 6 months, have happened from people who have emigrated here. Okay, legally, technically, the legal way, which is the way that my opponent wants to bring the refugees from Syria, and it's going to make us vulnerable. We need to let them just put a temporary hold, and after the chaos, bring them here if they would like to.
All right, Secretary Clinton, your
All
answer.
right. How did Mr. Trump fail to talk about his signature immigration plan? We're going to build a wall. It's going to be great. It's huge. We're going to put Trump's name all over it, right? Listen.
And Mexico will pay for it.
Exactly, right? Immigration is an extremely complex issue that we need to deal with both humanely and fairly. We have to find a solution that both recognizes the need for those coming into this country to obey the law, but also recognizing the fact that these immigrants often provide services in our economy that we desperately need. And a plan like building a wall and kicking everyone out shows just how much Donald Trump doesn't understand this problem. How many of us here have hopes of working in agriculture, picking tomatoes or strawberries for a living when you grow up? I would imagine not very many, right? If you and I aren't going to do these jobs, then who is? And these are the types of jobs that many of these immigrants that Donald Trump is denigrating so badly, these are the jobs that they perform. In fact, a few years ago, I'll tell you a quick story in the time that I've got left. The state of Alabama passed what I call a Trump-style law for immigration, where law enforcement officials were given the power to make lives for immigrants so bad that they would self-deport. And after this law was passed, a great many immigrants actually did self-deport. They left not the country, but they left the state of Alabama. And as a result, the agriculture industry, meaning farming, nearly fell apart in the state of Alabama. No one was left to do the jobs that these workers contributed. And it took only 7 months for lawmakers to change this law to encourage immigrants back into their state. So if I'm elected, I will introduce comprehensive immigration reform with a pathway to full and equal citizenship within my first 100 days in office. But it will treat every person with dignity, because the answer that the 21st century needs doesn't involve building walls, but building bridges. Thank you.
Okay, so he is correct in the sense that I would like to build a wall, and I've already outlined in my plan about how Mexico will help in paying for that, $5 to $10 billion, because immigrants who come here and work in the system, they send their money back to Mexico, and it helps their economy. I will tell them that they can only get that money and keep having people here if they help pay for the wall. But these lower jobs, they are not just farming. That's the Democrat lie. They are always constantly telling you that they are just here to be our farmers, right? You don't want those jobs. That's not how it works. They're taking jobs from people who are in the lower class, mainly minority communities, and they're taking those jobs from them, and they're making them even more poor in urban cities. And that is a problem, and that's why we need to control immigration more.
So let me use my follow-up just to address this plan that Donald has for you having Mexico pay for this wall between us. We could possibly get into how this is like the craziest plan that many of us have ever heard of in political times that we've been alive. It's not a real plan in any way, shape, or form. But instead, let me simply comment on some of the estimates that have been thrown out here. Donald Trump has said before that he would get this wall built for $4 billion. Okay, that's how much it would cost him. Estimates, people who actually do this stuff say, no, it would cost us actually $26 billion, not $4, and that's just to build it, not including maintenance, maintaining the wall. So it's ridiculous that we're even entertaining this conversation.
Any follow-up, Mr. Trump?
No, that's fine. We can move to closing statement.
All right. So each candidate will get 2 minutes to present a closing statement to try to convince you on why you should vote for them and or not vote for their opponent. We'll start with you, Mr. Trump. 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming to this wonderful debate at River City Science Academy. It was a pleasure to be here with you. I hope that you do remember that you need to vote. This is the state of Florida. You are very important voters because you are a swing state. And as an option on the ballot, I want to be the one that is able to carry your electoral votes in the Electoral College and be your president. Why should you vote for a Trump presidency? When you leave this room and you have that thought in your mind, here's what I want you thinking about. Do you want someone who sees the world in a new way? Or do you want a career politician who's had her chance through her husband and all these other jobs that she has held to do her mark on the world? And yet, if you ask the average Clinton supporter, do you even know what Clinton is known for? They have no idea. Okay, or do you want someone like Trump? When someone says, what is Trump known for? Trump is known for many successful things: hotels, casinos, businesses, coming into a situation that is failing and bringing it out and making it profitable. If you want a country that is happy again and great again and is going to look into the future and see the problems in a new light, you need to support and vote for Mr. Trump. Or you can choose my opponent, the one who has been doing it the same way as everyone else for the last 30, 40 years, and we're just going to keep going down that path. Because let's be honest, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing that you've been doing before over and over and over again. You might not like me, you might not like how blunt I am, but at least you know what I say I mean. And that if I want to put my name on something, I want it to be successful. Everything that's got my Trump name on it is either successful, or if it's not succeeding, I figure out a new way to do it. And that's what I will do for America. If it's not successful, I will find a new way until I can make it more successful again. Thank you.
Thank you. And for your closing statement, Secretary Clinton.
All right, listen. One of the things that scares me.
I need to ask the audience to call it silent down, please.
One of the things that scares me, even more than the prospect of a Donald Trump administration, is the prospect of what has come to be known as the Trump effect in America. This is an actual thing. People who feel empowered to act out towards minorities, toward women, toward Muslims, toward gays and lesbians, like actual stories of kids on the playground telling a Hispanic kid that once Trump is elected, he's going to build a wall and send that kid's family back where they came from. Stories of minorities being beaten up to the chant of Trump, Trump, Trump. Rape culture becoming even more widespread than it already is because, quote, our president does it. Whether we want to admit it or not, this election is a referendum on the type of country that we want to build for ourselves. In this election, will we appeal to our better angels? to the good that we see in ourselves and in each other, to create a nation where everyone can succeed, where everyone is given a fair chance, regardless of your race or your gender or your religion or your sexual orientation. And at the end of this election, I want to be able to look my daughter in the eye and be proud of who we are and what we stand for. Even our young children and our young brothers and sisters are watching what's going on in this election and hearing the things that are being said. And I might also add, are too graphic to be repeated in this room. And I am fiercely optimistic that we as a nation will reject Donald Trump's America, because I believe in the greatness of this country and the greatness of all of the people that are in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, this has been Secretary Clinton and presidential nominee Donald J. Trump. Just as a reminder to students in the room, you will be voting on Monday in your core social studies class. Your teachers will know where to take you. And that is it for all of us. Have a great day. If you're in my 7th